Hey everyone, my name is Ari. Welcome back to my podcast, Surrounded by Addicts. It's extremely weird for me to see somebody younger than me, but also very close to me, go through an active addiction. Mainly because when I was growing up, I always associated addiction with people that were much older than me, which made sense because when you're a kid, everybody seems so much older. Even though I knew that a lot of addictions started young, like people that I have spoken about before and people that I haven't spoken about at all, a lot of their addictions kind of stemmed from teenage childhood years or early adulthood years. But I didn't really put two and two together that I would start seeing people my age or younger go through the same things that I saw family members go through when I was growing up. And it was really it was really disheartening and really sad to see somebody very close to me, who I'll just call Rose. It was really hard for me to see Rose go through her own journey of addiction, a bad cycle, a downward spiral, whatever you want to call it. It was really odd for me to see that because me and her were like a dynamic duo, two peas in a pod, grew up together. I got to see how she grew up. I was over at our house pretty much every summer. I was very close with her parents. I still am. I still am very close with her parents, but she didn't fit the when you think of somebody that might, go down the wrong path, you wouldn't think of Rose's upbringing. It would be a shock, and it kind of was a shock for that very reason, which I guess was really naive of me to think like that at the time because I knew how addiction worked, but I still couldn't put it in my head that someone like Rose would fall for it. Not for it, but fall into it, I guess. And since she is a couple years younger than me, it was even more like astonishing because it was just my first time really seeing somebody so young go through something that I only associated with like 30-year-olds. And even though we were approaching our 20s at the time, we still weren't 20. So it was still kind of odd, like, oh my God, like this is how young it starts. Like I would hear stories about people getting involved in certain things when they were teenagers, and meanwhile that origin story is unfolding right in front of me. And it was really hard for me to deal with that. I could only imagine how Rose was feeling during this time, but for me, obviously because I'm not Rose, so I can't speak on exactly her perspectives, but for me it was really weird to see it happen. Rose started to go on a bit of a downward trend at the beginning of her high school years, like between freshman sophomore year, so I was closer to junior senior year. That's when Rose started to struggle with keeping up attendance, keeping up grades, and just overall being interested in school or having a hard time with the subjects, which it wasn't that crazy to me. Like, I didn't view it as that bad because I knew a lot of people where the shift from middle school to high school was different. The freedom that you have from those two types of schools were different. So it didn't really alarm me that Rose was starting to struggle with the schoolwork. Of course, I wanted her to do well and I didn't want her to fail, but I didn't think it was crazy that she was struggling with the school material. And at the same time, I was concerned by the vaping. Vaping started to become really big around this time. I wasn't one to vape. I never used a vape before. To this day, I never used a vape. And I knew that Rose did. I knew that Rose had a vape and that she was kind of, obsessed with it. She was more addicted to it. And although I didn't like it, I didn't really contribute that to the start of her downfall, or not downfall because that sounds super dramatic because she's doing okay. She's doing okay now. But I didn't want to attribute the vaping to the start of something really bad, even though hindsight 2020, it kind of was because it kind of opened the door for other addictions to walk into. So that was the start. It started, like I said, around her freshman or sophomore year. I remember she was pretty open and honest with me about her school struggles because I was always, I guess, academically blessed. I never really struggled with school, so she didn't really have a lot of issue reaching out, and I would try to explain her lessons. I would try to teach her. I would basically try to tutor her the best I could while also still being in school myself. COVID was kind of becoming a thing, so I couldn't actually go and visit her. She couldn't actually come and visit me. So this is mainly all over the phone, texting, calling, etc., etc. Well, she kind of told me a bit on the later side, but eventually she starts dating. Nothing wrong with that. Knew plenty of people that were dating when at the age that she started dating. What she didn't really tell me was that this guy was a bit on the older side and he was also a very bad influence. And this is where the more obvious downward spiral kind of started to happen. But I got to learn all of this a couple years after the fact. So the whole time up until she graduates high school, I know that she is going through a lot. I know that she is having a really difficult time managing things and that her parents and other older members of the family, other older friends of the family aren't really liking the track she's on. I just don't know what's going on. I'm hearing the results. I don't really know the root of the problem. I'm still assuming, like, yeah, I know that she's dating and maybe she's getting a little distracted with the guy, but I didn't know the full picture. And the full picture was a very big part of the problem. I start to learn things about 3 to 4 years after they already started to take place. And I start to learn a lot of the details after Rose graduates high school. And turns out she was mainly just embarrassed about what was going on, and she didn't want me to be disappointed in her or to judge her or for the typical reasons that people don't speak up. That's why she didn't want to talk to me about it. And it made me kind of reflect on how I viewed certain situations because I never expected Rose to not open up to me about certain things. And I personally feel like I wasn't that type of person in the first place. Like, I learned a lot about different people's past and their presence and what they have done, their wrongdoings, etc. So it was more of a surprise to me that the reason why Rose didn't want to discuss these details with me was because she thought I was going to be mad at her. And to some degree, I can understand because it's not fun telling another person that only had positive views of you and got to see you grow up. It's not fun to tell that person the mistakes you made or where you may have fucked up or, some of the wrongdoings you've done. So she took about 3-ish, almost 4 years to tell me how bad her situation was. And it wasn't until she told me where I start to understand that she was almost a full blown alcoholic, that she was going on heavy drinking binges, that she was partying with people that were way too old for her to be around. It wasn't until that 3 to 4 year mark where I started to know how much her drinking problem kind of overtaken her. And it also was the time where I realized how bad of a person her boyfriend was. And this boyfriend of hers was kind of off and on. There was a boyfriend that only lasted like a year or two that I learned about that I thought was the same person she was currently dating. So I learned a lot about the missing information, and I started to understand why everybody else around me was really concerned about her because of what was going on. So as I'm taking in all these details, I would ask her, like, what made you want to do? I won't go into detail about, like, all the things that she told me just for the sake of, like, her privacy and it's not my story, da da da. So I won't say every little thing that she told me. But I will say, when I started to ask her about why she made certain decisions. And admittedly, she would tell me she was under the influence or she was coming down from something. She truly just went with the flow in a really messed up way. Like she wasn't thinking, she wasn't capable of making rash decisions. And again, it was one of those pieces of information where I knew that. I knew that when you're under the influence, you don't make good decisions. And when you're constantly under the influence, you don't make good decisions. And if you're around other people that are under the influence, none of you are going to make good decisions. But it really struck me on how fast things can go from good to bad and bad to worse because of an addiction. And as she was describing to me the chain of events that happened and things that she remembers and doesn't remember, I could see the I could see the vulnerability and I could see the pain as she was describing those things to me. And I could see how much just in a short span of a couple of years, how much those things really changed her and gave her kind of like a personality shift. She's still a great person. She has not really done anything worthy of being punished for, but her judgment definitely slipped. And it really opened my eyes on how easy that is because I'm learning firsthand from somebody that's younger than me what it's like to go through an addiction and how quickly you can not even be fully in control of what's happening to you or around you, but how you can also be very responsible for certain actions and some of the actions you don't remember. One of the biggest things I didn't understand was just why didn't she come to me sooner? And it was kind of an odd realization that I guess maybe we both had, but she said that she knew what she was doing was wrong. And what she was doing, she knew that most people wouldn't approve of. And I asked, like, if you knew that you weren't doing the things that you were supposed to, why'd you keep doing them? And she didn't word it like this word for word. I'm basically paraphrasing what she said from what I can remember, but it was just she felt like she deserved to put herself through the things that she was putting herself through because she felt like she deserved it from past mistakes, from her own like negative self-talk. She knew that what she was going through was bad and she knew that it was going to make her feel worse, but she just felt like she deserved it. And then there was, blips in time where it was because it was fun, but overall, she just couldn't see a way out of the negative situation she was in and just thought it would be easier to go through it even more so and just wait for it to end. And it really crushed me because I never really heard of it and I never really heard of anything be put in that way from the perspective of fighting through an addiction. And because this is somebody that I was really close with, I had a different level of compassion for it. It was kind of my first time being able to understand how being so self-hating can cause even more destructive behavior, even when a better choice or a clearer mindset could help them out of that. It was my first time really understanding how much being self-hating can push a person in a negative direction, which may or may not be a bit naive of me to say, but when I would hear about people going through tough times in their addiction or life in general, but these people are much older than me, it would be easier to view their decisions as they're just making a stupid mistake, they're not thinking things through, they don't have like a trajectory that they're trying to fit. But knowing Rose and growing up with her and hearing her have the same explanation that other people did for why they fell into their addictive habits, it just hit me in a different way because I know the type of person that she is. I knew what goals she had, I knew what she wanted out of her life, but because of self esteem and confidence issues, she kept making poor choices that were really hurting her. And there was nothing that anybody could say about how wonderful she is that would pull herself out of it. Because, of course, as she's telling me these details, I would just be stunned and I would tell her, I'm so sorry that you felt this way about yourself. And I would try to kind of dig deeper and try to understand why she had these perceptions of herself or why she thought she deserved to be treated in a certain way. And she overall just had a hard time explaining it. She would explain things on a very basic, like matter of fact way. Like, well, I did this at one point, so that's why I put myself through this. Like, there was a very basic and intentional connection between how she felt, others felt about her, how she felt about herself, and then the actions that she proceeded to do. And I didn't really know how to help in any of those situations, not just because I didn't see her a lot, but we lived far apart. I never went through anything like that myself, and it was truly up to her to make changes. Like, no matter what I could offer, it was ultimately up to Rose to get herself out of that situation. And the only difference now is that I could be there a bit more for moral support because now I knew what was going on. I knew who I thought she could trust, who I thought she couldn't trust, and I could give her some advice if she asked for it, of course, because sometimes it's not good to give your opinion when they don't ask for it. But I truly felt helpless. Even though I wasn't the one going through the problem, I finally understood what it was like to feel helpless in that scenario. Like, oh my God, I really can't do anything for you, even though I wish I could solve all your problems. I wish I could get you out of this situation. Like, I felt stuck, and I probably felt, I'm imagining that I felt as close to what a parent could feel for their child as imaginable without actually being a parent and without her being my child, which it could be, I could be completely wrong with that perspective, but the helplessness I felt in that moment, I'm imagining is what a parent would feel about their own child going through something like that. And since that conversation about 3 years ago, it really changed my whole perspective on addiction because of the helplessness that I felt. Of course, there's different dynamics, and I give Rose the most grace I can with what she went through compared to other people in my life that I know that are struggling with something. Like, there is still a difference, but it's different. I tried to always have compassion, but after learning what Rose went through, I realized that I had very little compassion. At least my level, like my meter, like reading of how much compassion I had, I thought it was much higher when in reality it was a lot lower. And after what Rose explained, I now have a higher compassion meter than what I thought was possible. Fast forward to now, like I said, that conversation was in 2023 after she graduated high school. Fast forward to now, a lot of bad shit did happen. She did get back together with an ex. She moved and rented a house with him, had dogs with him. And when I learned that they got back together shortly after my 2023 conversation with her, even though I was upset, I could understand it. I didn't like it. I told her, you know, it's not healthy and it's not good, but, you made that choice. Who knows what manipulation tactics he might have said or done? Who knows how he worded it? Who knows how much he was lying, etc., etc. So, when they got back together, they of course went through that kind of honeymoon phase of everything was perfect, but then very quickly it kind of went back to the same old because she felt more comfortable just talking to me about these things. I started to learn that truly the only thing I could do to help her in these situations was to be there for her and to just love her. Like, I can't, you know, I could write a whole essay on why she should leave the situation she was in. I could write her a 1 to 10 step plan on how she could leave that situation and be okay. I knew that nothing I really did was going to change her mind. She had to come to that conclusion on her own. And that's where the feeling of helplessness would keep reoccurring because I knew that I could only just invite her with open arms to talk to me, to listen to her without judgment. And if she asked for my advice, then give her that advice. But for the most part, I was just left to support her and love her, which again is a lesson that I was already starting to understand, a lesson that I already knew was true from dealing with other people with addictions in my life. But because Rose and I were so close, I felt like I had a different level of reach with what my help can be. I felt that it would be possible for me to just step in, rescue her, get her out, and boom, be done with the situation. But I had to relearn that it doesn't matter our relationship, it doesn't matter that we grew up together, it doesn't matter that we were close in age. What she was going through was similar to what other people went through, and that means what I could do to help was pretty much the same. I had to not fully step back, but I had to let things play out, let her know I was a safe person to talk to, let her know that she could always come to me and that I would always support her and I would always love her. But at the end of the day, like when it came to my drunk uncle, my drunkle, can't do anything to help his situation. I can't do anything to help Rose's situation. When it came down to Jim, my father, no one could really reach over and fix his problems, and I can't do the same for Rose. She had to come to it herself. So years are going by, we're in 2024, 2025, 2026, and I'm learning about all the ins and outs of her relationships and her dynamics, and I'm learning about her goals and what resources she has to complete these goals. But of course, I'm also still in the loop of the partying, the drinking, the somewhat, I don't want to go too into it, but the abuse and the toxicity she was experiencing on a nearly everyday basis, not just from her partner, but the partner's friends and some of her own friends were treating her poorly. But because of that addiction cycle that she was in, she couldn't see it clearly. She didn't understand how bad it was, or she didn't see a way out of it. And of course, I'm trying to help open her eyes to some of those details, but because I don't want to push her away, I had to be gentle with my approach and not turn people that she thought were friends into enemies right before her eyes. I wanted her to learn certain things by herself so that she knew that I wasn't coming from a place of malice, or I wasn't trying to have her be isolated from people that she liked to be around. So it was just a constant loop of me having to hear about really bad things that were going on around her, and me trying to bite my tongue to not scare her off or to not make her feel like I was judging her to the point where she wouldn't want to be around me. Um, like I said, she is doing a lot better. And now that she is out of a toxic situation and that she is in a safer place, again, she felt more comfortable kind of telling me more details about her whole situation that at this point she was going through for closer to 10 years, but not 10 years yet. Okay, I don't really know where I left off because there was just a string of emergency services driving by, and I was trying to talk through it, but they were really loud and they were running, well, they were driving by for a very long time. I tried to look at the my city police scanner, and it turns out there's some crazy things going on, so I will try and edit to piece everything together so it makes a little bit more sense. But Anyways, I'm going to try to continue where I left off, but I don't remember exactly where I left off, so we'll see how this goes. If it wasn't for the nuanced perspective that I had when dealing with Rose, and this nuanced perspective kind of started to form and change over time as I started to learn more about what she was exactly going through. If it wasn't for that perspective that I had and I tried to remain true to, um, I don't know if me and her would have the relationship that we have. Of course, life takes you in different directions, and naturally, people are going to do what they want to do, and you can't really predict how the future is going to be in years to come, even if you have a plan. So, of course, we're not as close as we used to be when we were kids because we were kids with no responsibilities. um, I can still connect with her really easily when I see her. We can, we have conversations and we have great times like there has been no time apart. And I've been able to see from someone that I never really had an issue with. And I guess what I mean by that is like with Jim and trying to understand his addiction, he hurt me, he abused me, so I couldn't see it. With Drunkle, like he allowed me to drink, and I got to see, and I started to understand for myself how bad that was, and then me and him started to have a lot of issues. So I get to see with Rose her perspective of having an addiction while also not having that gripe with her that I would have with other people because she hadn't done anything bad to me. So the type of compassion that I could have for her was so vastly different from the compassion that I could have for other people because in my eyes she was still so innocent, and she is younger than me, and she was so young going through these things that the way that her addiction was affecting her just blew my mind, I guess. But now that she has gone through it and that she is in like a much better direction, like she is in college, she does have a degree that she is trying to pursue, and she is not in that bad relationship that she was in. Oh, cat cameo. Hi. What are you doing? You can't. Oh, he's right out of frame. You can't see him. You might see him in 2 seconds. Oh, there he is. There's the bullet. My co host. My Sprite is over there. I always have a Sprite. Zero sugar, because who drinks full sugar sodas? Not me. Stay. Okay. As long as he doesn't. Okay. I don't know how much of you I might cut out, but um, overall, just her experience with an addiction really changed how I. Overall, her experience with her addiction just changed my opinion of it for the better because you really can't judge a book by its character. You really can't predict how someone will turn out based off their upbringing. And when somebody is abusing themselves and then being abused by others and then being abused by their, I guess, hobby or substance of choice, their decisions that they make are going to be a lot more selfless, but not in a positive selfless, in a let people walk all over them selfless, or try to appeal people that don't deserve it, or just so many things under the sun that when you're sober and you're in a calm state of mind, you can't picture doing. But when you are under pressure, you're with somebody that makes you feel unsaved. And when you're with somebody that hurts you, and then you're also so young and you don't have a lot of support, or it doesn't seem like you have a lot of support, you can do a lot of damage to yourself. Um, it feels weird calling what she had with drinking an addiction because she doesn't really label it as such. She acknowledges that she went through a really bad drinking binge, and she admitted to being messed up a lot of the time, to the point of not remembering a lot of specific details, like more on the like getting blackout drunk, um, or having a hard time piecing the puzzles together of a certain time frame because of the state of mind that she was in. So she isn't, I haven't heard her really call it an addiction, but I am just calling it one just because it's easier than trying to explain what she thought it was or how she labels it. So I'm calling it addiction. She hasn't called it an addiction. And I know that she has, I don't know if she's completely quit drinking, but I know that she has severely reduced how much and how frequently she decides to drink. And she was already on track to not really smoke weed as much for just simply not really liking how it makes her feel. So, as far as I know, she is more living a, I guess, sober life. Not a completely sober, but more sober than what she had been doing for the past couple of years. And you can tell the change, but I can see the positive change and I can see the negative change. I can see how positive she has turned out and how much she has learned and how much she has grown from these experiences. But at the same time, I know that she will forever be a different person from what she went through, what she put herself through, what she is 100% responsible for, what she is 50% responsible for, what she is 100% not responsible for. I know that she will forever be altered, and at the time that I saw her last, she was definitely still overcoming and processing and trying to come to terms with what she went through. So I can only imagine that whenever I see her next, her perspectives and whatever insight she has might change. And I'm not really sure how she will be. She was very stable, like she is okay now, but from how I knew her before this cycle started, how I knew her during the worst of this cycle, and then how I know her after escaping that cycle. Very three very different people. But overall, I could see the mindset shift. How she talks to me is different, but I'm overall happy that she is in a healthier place, and it just was a big lesson to me on how much addiction can really change a person, especially when this person you saw grow up from like a little innocent kid to a little like rebellious teen to a full-fledged adult that has been through things that I could only imagine because I haven't been through those things myself. What Rose went through really shaped and changed my mind on how I feel about recovery, active addiction, relationship dynamics, and all the things above. And I am, you know, I really appreciate that no matter what she was going through, me and her were able to remain like on a good talking basis, even though she didn't feel comfortable at certain times and I'm just not seeing her a lot. um, it really showed me that you can only truly be there for a person when they're going through it, but as long as you show them that you love them and show that you aren't trying to judge them and that you overall just want the best for them, you can still you can still have a positive and even a healthy relationship. The only thing that I just had to do differently with Rose when she was going through the worst of it was try to keep my distance because she did have some negative influences around her that I didn't want to be around, and I was honest with her about that. I didn't want myself to have that suicidal empathy and start to do the things she was doing, but I also was honest and upfront with her about my reasons why that I said or did certain things. And now that she is at the other end of it, we have a pretty healthy relationship and we look forward to seeing each other. We look forward to talking to each other. She's pursuing her goals, I'm pursuing mine. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to Surrounded by Addicts. Remember to take life one day at a time and to enjoy the little things in life. Stay tuned for the next episode.